guys, it's Meg and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we're going to be doing something that's been quite highly requested, and I'm going to teach you all of my top tips for how I do my hand lettering. I am going to talk you through 4 of my most used hand lettering styles. We're going to start off with the Bouncy hand lettering, which I use in almost all of my bullet journal spreads. Then I'm going to show you my joined up cursive handwriting. And then I'm going to talk you through some basic calligraphy strokes, how to do calligraphy with a brush pen, and then also how to do calligraphy if you don't have a brush pen. So you can use a biro, just any pen that you've got lying around. So starting off with the Bouncy hand lettering, which is definitely my favourite style, I'm just going to be using a standard pen. This one's from Paper Chase. I'll try and link it in the description box below if you would like to check that one out. But all you need is a blank sheet of paper, preferably lined, but you can of course do it in your bullet journal as well if you'd rather do that. And any old pen, even a pencil, will be fine for this. So I'm just going to write a title at the top so we know what we're doing. This is the Bouncy hand lettering style. I'm definitely not a professional at doing this. These are just my tips. I'm not even sure if these are the proper names for these handwriting styles, but I'm just telling you what I know, how I do it, and I'm always pretty happy with how it looks, so hopefully these tips will help you out. So first things first, you need to really be confident with your joined up handwriting. So for example, let's use the word hello. Writing that in standard separated letters. The next step is, like I said, being confident with joined up lettering. So writing hello. So I would write hello out a few times just to be sure that you are confident with your joined up handwriting style. It's just something that will take practice, but don't worry if that style of handwriting isn't particularly neat for you. You don't need it to be neat, you just need to be confident joining letter to letter. So step 3 is, once you are feeling confident with your joined up letters, is to then start practicing leaving an extra bit of gap between the letters. You'll see why when we get to the next step. So again, you just want to be practicing this over and over. It shouldn't change the feel of your writing too much. You might just take a bit of extra time to do it, but that is probably good practice, as hand lettering is not actually particularly quick to do. So don't be surprised if it takes you a lot longer than normally it would to write something. So as you can see here, I've already done the occasional loop on the O at the end of hello. That is just out of habit because I basically always do this Bouncy hand lettering style, especially in my bullet journal, so don't feel the need to be doing that on your O's just yet. That's just out of habit. So you can see up here in my normal joined up handwriting, I wouldn't actually do those little loops, but yeah, it's just habit for me to do that. I kind of find it hard to go back now that I do it so often. But step 4 is going to be adding these loops into your slightly more spaced out handwriting. So for example, you would add a loop at the top of the H maybe. The E, you wouldn't add a loop because there's nowhere to add it. You'd add a little loop at the top of the L's and that little loop on the O that I always do. So as you can see, it's already starting to take the shape of my hand lettering style. This bit might take a little bit more practice, but again, there's no rush, and I will leave this playing at regular speed so you can see just how slowly I do these letters. Once you're confident with your standard joined up handwriting, your slightly more spaced apart joined up handwriting, your spaced apart joined up handwriting with the loops, you're then ready to progress to the Bouncy lettering style. So the difference that will be made between step 4 and step 5 is simply adding movement to these letters. It's kind of hard to explain, but you basically create that by making your letters not necessarily straight on the line. You'll let these loops, for example here between the H, that will drop down. The E might not be in line with the H. The L might go up a little bit more. the second L maybe comes down, and so on. So you do your regular H loop, and when you come to do the body of the H and the drop, take it down a little further. Then come back up for the E. You could then do the L a little higher up and the second L lower down, and back up again to the O. This can be done differently every time you do it. There's nothing specific necessarily about it. It will definitely change for me over and over as I do it. You can then play with adding even more bends, even more bounciness to the letters, and you'll soon develop your own little style within this lettering style. So that is our bouncy hand lettering style complete. Like I said, you'll just want to practice these different steps over and over again until you are feeling really confident, and then you can start to play around like I have done on this final line. This is the style of hand lettering that I mostly use in my bullet journal for the days of the week. So for example, this is how Monday would look. Just adding in loops and dropping them down wherever I feel it fits in. Again, this changes each time I write it out, but it just shows you how versatile this style of lettering is. And you can also see that I do take my time whilst I'm doing it. Of course, the fact that I do this all the time, I'm getting a bit quicker each time I do it, but when I first started out doing this hand lettering style, I was definitely taking my time. So the best tip I can give you is to not rush and make sure you're really confident with these initial steps before you start experimenting with the more bouncy style at the end. Now on to our next hand lettering style, which is going to be my cursive joined up lettering style. So this lettering style I am teaching you next because being confident with your joined up handwriting is essential for this one, and you can incorporate some of these loops that we've got used to in the first bouncy hand lettering style. So tip 1 is to first of all be confident with your joined up lettering as we've discussed in the first one. The second step is to then add a slant to the letters, so tilting them on the diagonal, which I believe is often known as cursive handwriting. So you may or may not already be quite confident writing like that. If you're not, definitely keep practicing that until it feels natural. I actually find it easier to write quicker when it's on a slant like this. Just because of how you hold your pen, I think being on a slight slant makes it easier to write quicker. But again, it's not about speed. You don't need to be rushing this. But that's just something you might find doing this one is a little bit quicker, at least to begin with. So moving on to step 3, we then want to add some of these loops that we've been practicing into the curved shape. So with hello, we would add it there, and then on the L's and on the O's, which I can't resist doing on the previous steps. Remembering to keep it on a slight slant. Doesn't need to be drastic, but you can definitely tell that the letters aren't straight up here. And just keep practicing that over and over until you feel natural doing it. And then also drawing on one of the previous tips that we used earlier, you need to add some more space between the letters. And this is what helps create the joined up effect. This is a style of lettering that I will use if I'm wanting to create a bit more of a sophisticated style in my bullet journal. But it's also really good if you have a title, maybe with 2 or 3 words in, and you can then join the joins between each of the different words. It's hard to explain, but I think it creates a really nice style of lettering. So here I'll just give you an example of how I might use this. So I'm just grabbing my journal now to show you some examples. So here on my reflection page, you can see it created a really nice title. Because it's so joined up and slightly stretched out, I'm able to make it stretch the entire width of the page, which just gives it a greater focus for a title piece. You can also see it here at the top of my gratitude log. This shows a good example of how it can be used to join 2 words together, again to create that nice cohesive title. And a final example is my content planner that I created back in July. This I feel just shows exactly how nice this style of lettering can look as a title. You can make it stretch across the whole page without it looking strange that you've stretched it. And it's also just a nice, simple minimalist and quite an elegant design to have as a title to change things up a little bit. Here is another example of it in use in my journal. Although these are different words, and you can clearly tell that they're different words, they're still joined up, which makes it create a really nice title effect. Here it's going through the middle of the page, but of course you could use it anywhere that you like. Also, this page gives you a good example of the bouncy hand lettering style, which I like to use. If you've watched any of my previous YouTube videos though, you'll probably see me use this in all of those because it's definitely my favourite style. I thought I should show you this cursive joined up style just to give you a bit of variety and create something a little bit different in case you want to mix it up. So I've just turned over to a new page, so now we can move on to the calligraphy and the calligraphy without a brush pen. So before we start, I'll just show you what a brush pen looks like in case you've not seen one. This is a Pentel brush pen. I will have it linked down below. They come in different widths as well, so I've got a slightly thicker one. Just gives you a bit of variety with the shapes that you can make. But let's stick with this basic one. So when I take the lid off, you can see it's called a brush pen for a reason. The tip is kind of shaped almost brush-like, wider at the base and goes to a tip. And it's more flexible than a normal pen tip, which you'll see when we start using it. But when you press, if you press slightly to the side, the tip bends like a brush would. So that is probably the first thing to note, is when you're using a brush pen, you want to be holding it at a slant more so than you would with a normal pen. So I'm just going to write calligraphy at the top so we know what we're doing. And I will probably post a photo of these pages onto my Instagram, so if you want to go and follow me over there, you'll then be able to see all of these tips again later if you want to go back and refer to them. So my Instagram is on the screen, but it's also linked in the description below. So first things first, we need to learn the basic brush strokes of calligraphy. I'll show them to you now, but if you search it up on Pinterest, probably as well on Google Images, you should be able to see them. So the first one that we want to learn is the basic upstroke. So using a brush pen, you want to be using the very tip of it to create the thin line. Then the next stroke we need to learn is a downstroke, which is pressing slightly harder on the side of the brush and you create this thicker downstroke. Again, this just takes a bit of getting used to the pen, but if you don't have a brush pen, don't worry, we'll be going over how to create very similar style writing just with a standard pen in a minute. So that's an upstroke, that's a downstroke. The next one is an overturn, which is going up with the thinner side of the brush and down with a thicker line. Then we have an underturn. The names aren't important, you don't need to learn these, you just need to be able to do these movements with the pen. So don't worry too much about the names and stuff. So we've got an upstroke, a downstroke, an overturn, an underturn. Then we want a compound curve, which kind of puts these two together. You're going up with the thin, down with the thicker bit, and then up again with the thinner bit. It just gets you used to creating different types of stroke within the same movement. After that, the next main shape we need to be confident with is the oval, and that is starting with a thinner line, going into a thicker line as we go down and back up to a thinner line. This one is kind of hard to do in slow motion, but when you're using it in a word, then it looks perfectly fine. And then the final things you want to be able to do are an ascending loop and a descending loop. You create a small loop at the top and you come down with a thicker stroke, and the same with the descending loop, down with a thick and up with a thin. So the loop section is always with the thinner part of the pen, and the kind of stalk is the thicker part of the pen. It's kind of one of those things that you just need to practice, and then you'll become more and more comfortable with it until you can start forming it into letters. So the entire alphabet is basically made up of these different strokes joined together. So if you could imagine this oval attached onto this ascending loop would create a D shape. And that is the basics of calligraphy. So I'll just give you an example of how this will work with our hello that we've been using. So you would have one of these shapes, the ascending loop, pressing down as you go down. Then you would have an overturn. Just like that. An E is the only one that's a bit of an exception, but it is just kind of a standard E shape. Then for the L, we would have the ascending loop again and bring it up with the shape of an underturn. Repeat that one again. And then an O will be created with the oval, and you can add the little flourishes when you're feeling confident. Definitely is not the easiest thing to explain, but hopefully with these visuals and with me talking you through it at the same time, you'll be able to pick up the basic tips and steps as to how to create calligraphy lettering. When you're confident with this standard calligraphy, you can also then incorporate some more of the bouncy style that we've practiced previously, which is often how I like to do it in my name request lives and things like that. So all of the letters are created in the same way, but when you're more confident, you can then just experiment with the placing of them, stretching them out a little bit, stretching the underturns, etc. And finally, we're going to do some faux calligraphy, which is what it's called when you do calligraphy without using the proper pen. It's not necessarily going to create exactly the same style as these, but these are my tips for creating as close as you can pretty much get without having a brush pen. So to start off with, if we're using the word hello again, you will create the same shapes that you would with a brush pen, all of these basic strokes, but you won't be using the pressure to create the thicker or thinner lines. So as you can see, I'm still doing the ascending loops. I'm still then doing my oval. It just doesn't have the thicker and thinner lines that are created with the brush pen, which is obviously the whole point of having a brush pen because it does create those lines for you. However, you're not unable to do it if you don't have that kind of pen. So I'll show you how. So that is your standard calligraphy style lettering without a pen. Just going to create the same thing again over here so you have something to compare it to. And then in order to create the similar calligraphy effect with a standard pen, you need to manually thicken the lines that would be thickened with a brush pen. So the tip is that the lines that would typically be going downwards are going to be thickened. So you imagine writing hello, you would be going up on this loop, you'd then be going down on the stalk. So the down is thicker. You'd then be going up over the H and down on the other side, so that will be thicker. You then go up to the E loops upwards and round, and as you go round and down the E, that would be thicker, and so on. So you get to the L, coming down would be thicker. Generally, any of the strokes that are going down are going to be the thicker ones, and any that go up are going to be the thinner ones. Don't forget your little flourishes because they also have some element of the thickness to them as well. So once you've got this, you then just want to colour that in. Depending on what kind of pen you've used, it may be a little bit time consuming, but the point is you're able to create very similar effects without having to have a brush pen. Of course, if you're really into the hand lettering and stuff, you may feel like you want to purchase a nice brush pen at some point, but this could be a good way if for right now maybe you're doing bullet journaling or you want to have a nice title on your school homework or something. You could use this to make do for now and then maybe invest in a brush pen later down the line. Of course, it's not perfect, but it does give you a really nice effect, which you can literally create just with a biro, fine liner, gel pen, anything like that. I then sometimes just slightly thicken up the thinner lines so that there isn't too much of a difference between them. But that just entirely depends on your preference. And there you have it. So I really hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial. I know a lot of you have been requesting it for quite some time. This is just a look back at our bouncy hand lettering, our cursive joined lettering, and then the different styles of calligraphy. Like I said, I'm going to post pictures of these sheets onto my Instagram in case you're interested in seeing them again at a later date. But I just really hope this video has maybe helped you out. Hopefully you've learned a few things you might not have known before or found easier ways to do them. And if there are any other tips and tricks you would like me to show you, then feel free to comment them in the comments. Let me know what you want to see and I'll definitely make those videos for you. If you did enjoy this video, then please make sure to like, comment and subscribe as it really supports my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.